conversations we've been having lately as I try to scale things back in my pack. I've been considering what to keep, what I truly need and what I don't need, what are luxury items. I was thinking about it, and this is an issue that I've sort of talked about a number of times, which is you can see that my sort of setup I would consider lightweight, but certainly not ultra lightweight. I'm not a brand guy, and I'm not a sort of purist. So I look at the purists in a positive way, particularly when it comes to, say, the ultralight group, because when I'm considering efficiencies in my own pack setup methodology, they are the ones who are inclined to emphasize those things more than others. I've always sort of considered the discussion of weight to be a bit of a canard. I don't really think the issue's about weight. Maybe it is for some, I don't know, but to me, it's about efficiency. Efficiency starts, obviously, with the considerations for a particular segment, or leg of your travel that day, based on the weather considerations, everything else, mileage, health. Okay. Then, as you go along, and you're using the resources that are available to you from other hikers, log books, weather reports, gut hooks, both collecting and sharing of intelligence, you make decisions about where to stop, where the resources are. Water resources, food resources, shelter resources, fire resources, the things that we need for both comfort and survival. So, for example, with me, I would rather carry 4 liters of water a mile before getting to my run site, whether it's a shelter or a campsite or wherever it may be, than to have to walk, say, half a mile or 4/10 of a mile to get water after I've reached my sleep site, rally or rest overnight site. The reason is reward and punishment. Rewarding ourselves for that which we've accomplished. The last thing I want to do is then to drop my bag and to have to go hike to fetch water. I'm in a moment of transition from the labor of the day to the relaxation of the day and the appreciation of the day. And I want to stay in that moment. I have no problem going down, whatever, 1/10 of a mile, a couple hundred yards, whatever, and getting water if that's the case. Hey, but there's a threshold in which that becomes continued labor. And I think it disrupts sort of the mental transition that we need to make to turn one day into a week, into a month, into 6 months, and a mile into 2189.8. So that's sort of the first thing. So I consider that efficiency. Likewise, because I like a campfire and I like to contribute to the community, about a mile out from my designated site, I start to pick up fire making materials and carry along some fire making materials so that when I get to the site, the best thing that happens is I get to contribute to myself or to the group by making a fire. The worst thing is I leave materials for the next guy or gal who may be in worse situation, more inclement weather or whatever it be, and would appreciate the fact that there's some material there for them. So what I'm going to do is take some lessons learned and some gear choices that I've made. I'll give the shout out to Postcard, who wrote the book, I think it's Secrets of a Thru-hike. He's one of the few that's actually taken the time to walk through the actual camp setup process. And I've learned a lot from that. But I think it's really actually something for me to walk you through as a dedicated discussion point. So let me do that. I'll take you from this and just walk you through approach. And then I'll probably have to do a separate video on departure. And I'm really interested in your comments and thoughts as I do this about what you do, what you found that I'm contemplating doing that is less efficient or you found to be not effective. Seriously, I don't have the answers to this. I'm trying to take past experiences and those things that apply in this instance and use them and cut away that which does. Okay guys, so Belgrade Forest doesn't have shelters, so we're going to use this little picnic table to sort of mock up the shelter approach. So as I mentioned, I've already considered how many miles, the weather, all of those sorts of things going into that particular day. I'm also have determined where I'm going to stop and run, where I'm going to get water, whether it's before or on my approach or after I arrive. And at the end of the day, I arrive to the shelter. I just take some few minutes to basically congratulate myself on what I did for that day, appreciate the fact that I'm giving myself this opportunity to take advantage of all that the good Lord's given us. As you're approaching the shelter site, of course, we know some of them are two-story or two-sided. Of course, the vast majority are single-sided, one platform. The considerations for that are essentially primary wind direction, weather, that sort of thing, about where is the best place to choose your particular location inside of that shelter. The other thing is that the rodents tend to stay out on the perimeter of the shelter. So you want to make sure that you leave sufficient room for their runway, so they're not running all over the top of you, which they probably are going to do anyway. They are less likely to run along the front exposed end of the shelter. So in general, you'll put your head towards the exposed end of the shelter. Of course, if it's too cold, you can obviously switch yourself around. Also, I like to not be on the outside edge, but maybe one in, and I like to be away from the open flap. Usually like there's a tarp or some opening, the open flap, or towards the back side of the door where the wind isn't going to come whipping through every time somebody comes in and out. So those are all considerations as far as getting a good night's sleep. And I'm going to, as you'll see, I'm going to take out my poncho, which is essentially my ground cloth. I'm going to give myself about 3 feet of space. I'm going to set that down. Then I'm going to take out my Climate Recon sleeping pad, and I'm going to put that on top. Then I'm going to take out my E&E Revelation quilt, take that out, let it get fluffed up, set it down. Now I've got my site and my space. Of course, my bag, I'm going to empty. My pouches, where I have food, that sort of thing, empty. Leave those open, leave the top of the bag open, hang the bag inside of the shelter, away from the rodents. So the food that I have in the pack is set up into essentially 2 bags. One bag, which will also be my bear bag, hanging bag, will have my breakfast and my dinners and my cook set. Second food bag is a lunch bag. That's for all the lunches I'm not having for that day. It will sit up on top because, not so I can rate it, although God knows that might be possible too, but I also keep my reserve hydration system in there. Inside of that little hydration bag is my 2-liter ever new bladder, so that I have water for breakfast and dinner. In addition to that, I have a oh shit bag, which is my repair kit and my first aid kit and that sort of thing. Then I have what Postcard calls my nighttime bag. That bag is hugely efficient. So essentially, the nighttime bag is something that I can pull out, and everything I need from essentially arrival at camp to getting up in the morning is in that bag, other than obviously food. I also have a small bag that is my footbox bag. So that bag is going to have my Sawyer filter in there. I could take other hiking clothes and put them in that bag and just throw it down there. The key is some things to make sure they don't freeze, water, and some things to try to make it less miserable when you get up and it's super cold in a February morning, right? So what I'm gonna do is pull these bags out real quick and just show you this process. As I mentioned before, my bag, this is really, as far as efficiency, when we're talking about efficiency, really helpful, stands by itself, okay? Because of the Z-Light, I'm sorry, that I'm using as an ass pad, that bag sits by itself. And when I go through this process, that's really gonna be important. First bag out is that lunch bag. Remember that? Now, 3 things are actually in here. Lunches that I'm not using, my hydration kit, which of course, remember, I'm just going to pick up and take down to the water source, and then I also keep a couple warm weather things in here, just like a balaclava and my puffy coat if I need to get to that. It's just easy to have them all kind of clumped together, because the hydration, it's when you stop that you get cold. So it's kind of the cold weather gear and the hydration system, and of course the lunches, they sort of make sense because that's sort of the time that you'd be using them. I do want to mention one thing about the hydration system. I have this little setup, again, another little hack, which not only do I have the scoop, and I've got the ever new 2-liter bladder, but I also have a little cord that I use. The reason I use that is because it just simply cinches down around the tops of the smart water bottles, so that when I fill those up, I can just carry them and they just sling like that. And then I just have the bladder to carry, so that my hands, I can manage sort of those 3 pieces of gear in addition to the little scoop. So again, efficiency, right? The next thing up is, this is my cook set and my meals. Now in here right now, I just have a bunch of things to make it bulky and heavy in order for practice. So this would be my setup. It would be a 20-liter bag instead of this 10, so that I could go up to 5 days if I had to. So that's the next thing, centrally located in the bag, so that weight help distribution. So these things are just going to be set to the side for right now. On the bottom of my pack, I have 2 things. So in this bag, it'll be probably a contractor bag. We'll have my quilt, my sleep clothes, and my underpad. In the other side, I will have my tent, the tent body. So the only bags I'm going to use right now, I've got these set down in sort of a little bit of accountability site, so they're not scattered all over the place, bag explosion. And the first thing I'm going to do is put down my poncho. right? So like I said, I'm going to give myself 3 feet, designate that space. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take my sleep pad, and I'm going to lay out my sleep pad. This is also a good way to check about your width. You know, this is about 25 inches. I give myself just about enough room to be able to set my boots on either side, so I'm not taking up too much room, but I have enough space. Then I'm going to take my, I'll just use the tent right now, but my quilt is actually already in the States. So then I'm going to take my quilt, puff it up, get loft, and so this is how I'm going to have my setup. I'm going to make sure my bag pockets are empty, and then keep those pockets open, keep the bag open. I'm going to hang that. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sit down here. I'm going to take care of myself, right? So I've got my night bag right here. In my night bag, first and foremost, I've got bag balm for my feet. What I'm going to do is take my, like I said, take my shoes and socks off, let those socks, put them somewhere so they can air out. I'm going to take my bag balm and I'm going to check my feet and I'm going to pamper my feet. And then, because I've combined my clothing, nighttime clothing system with my sleep system, I have those readily available, the sock liners and the heavy socks that I'll need, as well as obviously the tops and bottoms that I'll sleep in. So now's the time that I would put those socks on, change into my evening gear and that sort of thing, get ready for the rest of the chores that I have that evening, and also obviously to eat. My nighttime bag is going to sit right here at the head, so that at sunset I can just come right here. I know exactly where my headlamp is. I'm going to have pages from the AWOLs in here. Of course, I also have things on gut hooks. I've got my electronics battery charger here so that I can charge up the phone. I have ibuprofen cream in here. I've got Afterbite. I've got my toothbrush, toothpaste, and floss, and I've got my earplugs, all in this little night bag. Now that I've got my thing set up, I'm going to go down, do my chores, take care of my hydration, take care of my food. So when I go to sleep, I take my foot box bag and I put it down in the bottom of my quilt, so those things stay warm. I'll take my boots and put them up by my head so that I know where they are. I take my night bag, which has no edibles, of course, in it, and I put it inside of the boot. After I've eaten, I take my daytime lunch bag, put it into my breakfast and dinner bag, and I hang this. In my cook set, which is in here too, is my bear bag hanging setup. So it's all sort of consolidated and as efficient as possible. Having that process and those things consolidated together, those are the primary key considerations of being efficient when you arrive at camp. Okay, so I hope this video is helpful. I hope it sort of kicks in some thought processes about things that you do and considerations that you have when you're putting your gear together. Thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. Thank you so much for the views. I hope that this journey with me will be interesting to you. And of course, I'm having a great time watching many of your videos for those of you who are also doing vlogs. Have a good one, and we will be back to you soon. Scars out.